This is from PragerU. I wanted to put this on here because, once again, Prager University has a reputation for being very traditional conservative, okay, and religious in a lot of respects, okay. They've been doing YouTube videos for a while. They've had PragerU had Jordan Peterson as sort of a guest speaker or a guest, video guy, and so that's kind of like their mission statement. Let's just say, and the fascinating thing about all of this is that even Dennis frickin' Prager wants a piece of the red pill. He wants a piece of the manosphere. So I'm going to add this here.
Video. Andrew Tate is going to be addressing some, quote, Western women in this video in their take on a career versus children. Okay.
Sorry, my headphones fell off. If you're not going to have children, what are you going to do with your lives?
If I'm not going to have children, travel, just pursue anything that makes me happy, try to make money. I love traveling, so I would probably just
drink cocktails on the beach. Okay, next.
About the same thing, like travel, focus on my career, things like that. Like my career will become my baby.
What about you?
I honestly just want to get right into my career.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
What do you want to do in life?
Right now, so I go to the University of Miami. I'm majoring in interactive media. What I want to do with that is build virtual reality simulators for the military.
I need that as a clip. I need that as a shot.
I'm interested in acting and shit like that.
Miss Cuba, what about you?
Do whatever the fuck I want.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Well, I plan on becoming a doctor. So I'm just my career.
Your career.
I'm passionate about it, so.
A life without children is vapious, and it's inane, and it's pointless. And you may sit here and think that your career matters, but the truth is that your job will fire you at a whim and not give a second. Don't give a solitary shit. So and when you're 52 and you're past it with no grandchildren in a house by yourself, and all your friends have grandchildren in this beautiful life, and you're sitting there by yourself, do you think the fact that you can afford a few extra Gucci bags is going to genuinely make you feel happy? I was at my grandmother's 93rd birthday. I looked there. My grandmother had 9 children because there was my father and 8 more. They all had a bunch of kids, blah, blah, blah. I stood there and I looked at my 93-year-old grandmother, and there was a room, a whole room full with maybe 70 people that came from that one woman. Isn't that remarkable? Yeah, that nobody cared about her career. Nobody asked what job she did. Nobody asked how many times she went to the club.
I love
Nobody
the
asked if she had time to go to festivals. No. You had 70 sentient beings, including myself, full of life from one woman who dedicated herself to being a mother and a good wife. That is beautiful. And if you sit here and genuinely think that you're going to work your ass off through your fertile years, and by the age of 54, you're not going to be suicidal alone with a cat, then you're dumb. The happiest women on earth have children and a man who's paying the bills and their mothers. The happiest people on earth. I guarantee it. Your mothers, ask your own mother, do you regret having me? She's going to say, of course not. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. So now you're going to sit here and you're going to end your own bloodline? All your ancestors were out there surrounded by saber-toothed fucking tigers trying to survive on the streets out there in caveman days just to get to the final end where we have all the medical care and you can live in a nice warm house for your fucking selfish ass to say, no, I don't want kids. I'm too busy in the fucking strip club or going to fucking Mallorca to have a pina colada on the beach. It's absolutely insulting to your entire bloodline. Everything everyone above you has ever done and struggled for. All the times your grandparents went to work when they didn't feel like it, just for you to exist, for your selfish ass to say, no, me and my passions and my dreams and my shit drawings and my Instagram page is worth more than ever having children. You're a selfish fuck. Fuck that. You should all have kids.
Okay. As you can tell, he's very passionate about the subject matter.
All right. Let me stop this before we get Dennis's take on all of this, which I think is fascinating because it's like you got this hip show, you know, and you know, the young lady is like you can tell that they know that Tate is like a big deal. Do you think that Dennis Prager has any earthly idea who Tate is or would had she not, I forget her name, the host, had she not made him aware of any of this stuff? He wants to be a part of this. he wants to be a part of this. And I'll tell you, there's a history here, and I'm about to show you the history in a little while of Dennis Prager's history with the black pill, the MGTOW universe, and the red pill. We're going to get into that. But this is the chickens and the roosters coming home to roost. This is I am the cock that gets on the highest pile of shit and crows after this one. You will see why here in just a moment. But to have this guy pile on and go, yeah, well, he says some stuff that I really agree with. Oh, man, have we got a show for you. So when I look at this, and by the way, I like when you look at the chicks' faces on the tape video there on Fresh and Fit. Also, do you think Dennis Prager would have anything to do with Fresh and Fit? No. Not at all. Do you think he would want to opine and do videos about Myron and Fresh or having the girls on there and the conversations that they're having? No, not at all. But when Tate's on there, who you can't get away from, who you can't ignore for whatever reason, then there's a new respect given to all of this because they want to put their little toe in the manosphere. And this is how they do that. You will see just how much of a hypocrite this guy is when I show you the second video that's right after this. But it's just fascinating to me that this is this is where we're at this point. So as far as what Tate was saying about that is like he's dressing these girls down. He's not just them, he's dressing down the mindset that has been sort of on this buildup for a very long time. So, and by the way, has been across the spectrum, whether it's ideologically, right? It's been across the spectrum. So if you're this, wokesy feminist, who believes in, female empowerment and you love She-Hulk, like that side, that's one side of it. And then there's the opposite side, which is the tradcons, what we call the Sun Hat Brigade, right? Oh, I've learned my lesson and now I want to be a traditional conservative. And I'm sorry, I'm going to throw Allie under the bus, but I want to get right with the Lord and find me a good little old husband and live right and turn my life around and live right, right? That's just as corrupt as the opposite side, right? That's where I have to put this. I have to sit right here in the middle. I can't like people say, well, why you're punching left? Like when I went after Matt Walsh on that one show I did, about 2 months ago, people gave me grief, but I work here and this is what I have to do. So Prager, by the way, you're going to get it with both barrels here in just a second.
This is not what I expected. I saw him just a day ago on Tucker Carlson, and
can't ignore him.
I was saddened that when he talked about men and masculinity, he spoke about everything but becoming a husband, but getting married. So obviously that might have just been a unique conversation, because if this typifies him, while that's not my mode of presentation, no, that is the content of my life's thinking. I have had, in fact, your viewers can actually see this on the internet. A few years ago, I did something. I have over 1,000 columns on the internet, 20 years of 50 columns a year. So that's a lot.
Yes.
I devoted one in all of those 1,000. All I did is transcribe a phone call from a caller. A woman exactly like that, 50 years old, called my show because one of my hours each week of my radio show is devoted to men and women. It's called the Male-Female Hour. And this was the topic that day. And she called in to say she has a PhD. She makes well into 6 figures income. She has a great job. And she goes home at night. Did I say she was about 50? Did I say that? Yeah.
Yep, about 50.
And she goes home exactly what he described, to an empty house. And she regrets terribly that she bought the career Kool-Aid. There's nothing wrong in a woman having a career. There's something wrong if she thinks that will bring her satisfaction.
All right. Now, do you think that Andrew or myself or anyone else in the red pill would agree with this? Like, to an extent, yes. Okay. We want, like, a lot of guys want that pro-revenge, like, high. We want indignation just as much as women do, because men have been raised as if they are defective girls. Like, boys are raised as defective girls. So we get off on that. The 80%ers, the incels, the guys who are despondent guys, right? Yeah, we love that shit. Why? Oh, you want to know why accountability shows in the manosphere play so well? Because it feeds that want for like, get her, Kevin, get her, Myron, get her, Andrew, get her. Right? We get off on that because he's finally saying something that I wasn't able to say way back in the day. Dennis Prager's here trying to get a little bit of that juice here by saying, hey, look, I talked to this one girl way back in the day and I rebroadcast her, I don't know, whatever, her email or something like that. It's the same thing, by the way, that happened with Steve Harvey. When I did the Steve Harvey show, which was, months ago, when the woman comes up, she literally comes up and she's the one with the microphone in hand. And she's saying, hey, look, I did exactly what Dennis is describing here, right? I did everything by the book. I did everything I was supposed to. I was sold the Kool-Aid, right? I was told to be an independent, strong, independent woman. I went to school. I got my degrees. I went and I got my own business together. I got all kinds of money. I'm an alpha female. I'm a very straightforward, whatever. Now I'm 36, 37 and my mom's here and she wants to be a grandmother. And where's my man? Where's my man? Is that we have a deficit of real men in the world who can appreciate a good woman like me, who did everything I was supposed to do, that I was told from the time I was 5 fucking years old to do. And now I've reached that. And those are my accomplishments. And no man wants me because they have turned themselves into the men that they always wanted to marry. And no guy wants to have anything to do with them. And sorry, statistically speaking, you're probably not going to be getting married. And you're probably not going to go off into perpetuity and everything, because the things that you thought would make you attractive are completely the thing. Well, they're the things that would make a man attractive. If a man had a degree, if a man had like 4-year, whatever, master's degree, doctorate, if nothing else, that's status conferred. Okay. I don't care what you think of academia, but like you got that, you got your own career. You're making, I don't know, 7 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever it is. You're on top of your game. You're a statistical outlier. You kept yourself in pretty good shape. And you are like, imagine a guy in that situation. That guy is is on top of his fucking game, especially at 36, 37 years old. If he had those accomplishments that woman on the Steve Harvey show had, who was saying that, you go, why isn't this guy married? He's got his pick of the litter. He can do whatever the hell he wants to. But it is exactly the opposite for a woman who's 36, 37 years old with those same skills and those same achievements. And that woman's like, where's my man? We've been talking about that forever. In fact, he knows this because when I show you the turd flinging monkey video that I'm about to show you here, it's exactly the same message. Although it's coming from PragerU, it's coming from Allie Beth Stuckey. But there was, you guys probably don't know this, but me being the manosphere red pill historian that I am, I happen to know of the conflict and the back and forth between Dennis Prager and turd flinging monkey from back in the day. And they had all kinds of exchanges that were going on. And you know what? This guy, Dennis Prager of 2022, is not the same guy who was having those conversations with turd flinging monkey back in 2016. And I'll explain to you why. But here's the thing. This guy wants to get on the Tate train, man. He wants to get the Tate juice here. Clout chasers and hell raisers, right? Here's the clout chaser.
Right.
Like a good husband and a family. By the way, so of course I say good husband. A bad husband is not going to bring you joy.
Right, it's not at all.
Right, and it's a gamble. But so as a bad career is a gamble. Who promised you a good career? How do you know you'll be working with people that you enjoy or who are decent and honest?
Right.
There are no guarantees in life. So you're not guaranteed a good career if you pursue career. You're not guaranteed a good husband if you get married. However, all things being equal, it's better. There's no question. And I'm a man, and I'm saying that for me.
Yeah. So how do you think, a lot of people are going to talk about this being the case for modern day women, and a lot of young women I hear echoing the same sentiments. I don't want kids. I want the career. I want to be able to travel. I'll be the aunt who spoils her nieces and nephews. How do you think we got to the point that is a
I know how you got to that point. There was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal recently, which echoed something I've said all my life. Feminism has deceived now 3 generations of women. It started with my generation, specifically college in the early 70s. In my case, graduate school.
College, not college.
And I remember one of the gigantic lies, and I'm going to be very open with you. You might be shocked here.
I'm ready.
Yes, get ready. I'm warning you. I might go down in your esteem with this story, but I don't care. I prefer honesty to anything else.
Of course.
So they were told, among the two biggest lies feminism told women were career beats a man. The old line, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. Mm-hmm. You've heard that line, right? Okay. The other big lie was your sexual nature is like a man's. Mm-hmm. You can have sex with no commitment, no emotional attachment, and enjoy it just like men can.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
So now why did I preface this by saying that I will go down in your estimation? So when this was my 20s, and I remember thinking, holy crow, did I luck out. Men have wanted women to think this way for 4,000 years. Right. And it just happened as I get to be 20 years old.
Right. He's told this story like over and over and over again. I've seen like at least half a dozen different interviews where he has said exactly this thing. Which is, and I want to point this. I got to highlight this here really quickly because this is like boomer speak. I'm Gen X, thank you very much, not a boomer. Okay, so I'm going to call out bullshit when I see it. Okay, because we Gen Xers we call it like we see it here. Okay, so here's the deal. When you got this guy who's saying, "Oh yeah, I saw these girls," it would sound like it was a good. Hey, there's this new thing, and it's called hormonal birth control, and of course, what happens is then, of course, he thinks that it's just pandering to men's sexual nature, which it was in a sense. But what he's not pointing out is all of the catastrophic social shifts that came in the wake of all of that. So rather than say, oh, it was because guys wanted to get laid and now the door was open and we didn't have to worry about pregnancy anymore. No, it wasn't about that at all, Dennis. It was about the fact that we turned over the human reproductive process to one sex for the first time in history. That's why. That's why we're at where we're at right now. Instead of looking back and saying, oh boy, you know, guys just were thinking with their dicks and they just want to go and get laid all the time. Yeah, maybe in the freaking Woodstock, maybe in the, you know, the post-sexual revolution, you know, free love boomer movement. They didn't know what they were. Yeah, maybe you're right about that. I'm 20 years old. Yeah, maybe you were thinking with your dick back then. But what you weren't thinking of was the social impact of turning the human reproductive process over to only one sex. And again, incrementally over to one sex. So, of course, what happens is you get these guys, as I've said in the past, like everybody who has been born, like say after like 1960, let's just round it off. You're a feminist. You have had some sort of feminist indoctrination. You think in a way that you do right now because either your teachers or people who were influenced by other teachers have influenced your thinking when it comes to men and women being equal and this and everything else, right? The feminist narrative, the feminist movement, which has morphed really into gynocentrism, but all of that is part of influences or been influenced by people who were influenced by other previous generations. So the reason why he thinks, oh, I think women should be able to vote and they should have what they want to, but they should be more responsible for those things. Yeah, great. But you still have to recognize the fact of how we got to where we're at. And that's never going to be forthcoming from a guy like that. And yes, I realize he's in the business of like getting on there and yucking it up with how old is she? 22? Of course. What do we got here? 10-year follower. Keep practicing the good red pill. All this junk is clout chasing grifters, hiding the 20-year-old coattails you and the OG started. Thank you very much. Let's keep going here.
It's what I thought, because I was always a decent guy and I would not mislead a woman into thinking that there was an emotional possibility if there weren't. And now they're saying it doesn't matter.
Right.
So who am I to intervene with this great feminist message?
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. I saw a video this morning of a comedian talking about modern day women. And he said, you know what, men, we got to make it out there to those women's marches. And the guys are like, why? And he says, because the women aren't wearing any clothes. They're talking about sleeping with a bunch of men and not caring about it. They'll get rid of your baby if you don't want it. He's like, this is a dream for a lot of men.
That's exactly, no, for all men. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, that's a dream for male nature.
Right.
It's not a dream for a long period. That's why I got married.
Qualify it now for us.
Because I said, I'm not going to live this life forever. This is empty. I was a committed religious person, in my case, to Judaism, as a Jew. I knew this was not the life I should be leading. But of course, I also wanted to find the right person.
Right.
So this was you asked me, how did this start? The answer is with well-educated women.
Hormonal birth control.
The well-educated have done all the damage of the 20th century.
Yep.
The well-educated followed communism, the greatest mass murder movement in human history. The well-educated were deceived and deceptive, and they told women.
Apparently, Dennis Prager has never seen the movie Idiocracy.
This nonsense, career über alles, above everything, and that they don't need a man, and that they could have sex just like men can.
And now here we are.
Okay, let's full stop right there, Dennis, because I have to correct him before we move on to the next here. No, it has been this push towards communitarianism. It has been this push towards egalitarianism, which of course feeds into socialism and communism as a political thing. However, it's not necessarily the intellectuals that were the ones doing the killing and everything else. It was actually some pretty dumbass people who bought into this ideology. Okay, so let's be straight up here, because what is it? I got to start that. Hang on. I've made this point on previous podcasts as well, is that the idea of gynocentrism is definitely very much related to socialism and communitarianism. I think I put that in the like 2 episodes, 2 weeks ago. I was talking about this because Destiny came at me on that one. Oh, it's just, you're just trying to force fit these things, socialism and everything into your ideological box of the red pill. No, I'm not. I go back in history and I can go and show you what happened back in the day and how women think and how men think. Yes, Marxism was definitely started by a dude. Got it. But you know what? It was in the right place at the right time, because both of those, Marxism and feminism, or the beginnings of feminism, like say the suffragette movement, both started right around the same time. 1848, 1849, I think it was 1847, maybe, from Marx, somewhere around there. But they certainly found, common ground. Egalitarianism, that's really what it's based on. It's based on a fundamental misinterpretation, misunderstanding of human nature, because that's all they had to go on back then. They didn't know. It was all blank slate. It was Thomas Locke. It was all this Enlightenment era thinking about, we're all men are created equal and blah, blah, blah. We had no idea about evolutionary psychology. We had no hell of Darwin was just coming up back then, right? Maybe it was before that. But I mean, as far as like evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, there have been so many advances in understanding human nature since 1848 that to harken back to Marxism, or to harken back to the understanding of human nature that the suffragettes had and the Marxists had back in 1847 is ludicrous. It's like putting leeches on, like bleeding someone in 2022 when we have modern medicine. Why is our memes and why is our thinking still rooted? Why are we even having these fucking conversations in 2022 when we know goddamn well, I'll tell you why. Because we put women in charge. Because we have decided, as a result of putting women in charge of the human reproductive process, that we also should put them into the workplace. We should also put them into his own religion being taken over. The political process, hell, the world's economic organizations. I already showed you this, the IMF, the World Bank, the ECB, all run by women. In 16 of the most developed nations in the world, women control the purse strings. It's all about who's doing the spending, who's doing the allocating of funds, and how do women organize society as per, like, how do men? I gave you this breakdown, hierarchy versus communitarianism. I'm not going to go and belabor that again. But it's not intellectuals so much as it is the fact that we've decided to shift from a hierarchical way of organizing societies to a communitarian way of organizing societies. And we already know, I mean, you don't even need to have a really well-rounded understanding of human nature from a biological or evolutionary perspective. All you have to do is look at the failures of socialism and communism over the years. But they will always point back to that. But you don't even need that, because we already know that human beings aren't meant to work like that. That's not the best way to organize society. Western society has been a success because it was founded on hierarchies, not on, we talk about, communism, social. Throw all that shit out the window. That's a 20th century way of thinking. What it is, it's hierarchical ways of organizing society versus communitarian, egalitarian ways of organizing society. And that's why by the way, I called out Jedediah on this as well. As like, that's the difference between, you can take that from the political scale and put it down to the personal scale. So you'll hear women say, oh, I don't want to take my husband's last name. Why? Well, are you not wanting to be part of that guy's tribe? How is it? Oh, I don't want to be owned. That's patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I don't want to change my brand name. Oh, I don't want to, I'm an attorney and I can't change my business cards. I've heard shit like that, right? That's number one. The other thing is you will always hear women who are in an egalitarian relationship will always refer to their husbands as their partners. And I told Jedediah this. I said, why not refer to your husband, Jeremy? Why not refer to Jeremy as your husband then? Well, I do, blah, blah, blah. You're like, well, you just now refer to him as he's my partner. Well, there's a fundamental difference. Like I don't think I've ever called my wife my partner. I say she's my wife. Because there's a difference. Like people throw this at me all the time. They'll say, don't you think your wife is your best friend? No, not at all. No, Ned is my best friend. No. My wife is much more than a best friend. So there's a different qualification. And so therefore words mean something. And in this case, to call your husband a partner, that's expressive of an egalitarian mindset. Hell, homosexuals call their partners their partners. My wife, my husband, blah, blah, blah. And until you kind of go, you're a woman and you're referring to her as your wife. Like that throws people out. But people always want to say, oh, my partner this, my partner that, because they want to think in terms of egalitarianism. Well, when did that shift take place? When did we start calling our wives and our husbands our partners? I don't know exactly the date, but I do know it was after the sexual revolution. So if you want to know where all this stuff is coming from, it ain't going all the way back to, Timbuktu. It's with it all started right in 1965.
Now here we are with the largest depression rate among young women in recorded American history.
Yep. So in this case, after watching this video of Andrew Tate, who's a highly controversial man at the moment, you may not agree with the delivery, but you agree with the message.
Yes.
There we go, guys.
I want to be
you heard it here first from Dennis Prager.
So Dennis is cool, just like Tate is cool, right? Same thing that Patrick Bet David did. He was a stud. I could have gone that direction when I was a kid, when I was his age, but I decided to do something different. So you want to be associated with, you want the clout, but you don't want to be like completely identified and align with that clout. Same thing with Dennis Prager here. That's what I'm getting at. And before we go on, I think that's good enough for this one. Let me pull you out. But before we go on, children, I've got a cartoon for you.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
All right, well, let's get started.
Rape, murder, war. They all have one thing in common. Men. Aggression, violence, ambition unchecked by conscience, all the stuff of toxic masculinity, right? And the solution is obvious. Make men less toxic. Make men less masculine. Make men more like women. But I'm here to tell you that way of thinking is not only wrong, it's dangerous.
All right, so far so good. I honestly don't disagree with anything she just said. I've talked about the same problem myself. Maybe Prager used turning over a new leaf. Maybe they've recognized the importance of male authority, patriarchy, ready to take women's rights away. Maybe the traditionalists are waking up and they're going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Right?
Let's continue. Okay.
Remember, maybe they want to wake up and be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. This video, by the way, 2016. Just giving you a little bit of history here.
Here's why. When you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity. You get more. Why? Because bad men don't become good when they stop being men. They become good when they stop being bad. Aggression, violence, and unbridled ambition can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed. And when they are harnessed, they are tools for good, not for harm. The same masculine traits that bring destruction also defeat tyranny. The traits that foster greed also build economies. The traits that drive men to take foolish risks also drive men to take heroic risks.
Wow. So I'm actually really impressed. I don't disagree with anything that's being said. But I have a feeling that there's a but coming. But let's continue.
The answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity. It's better masculinity. And we know what that looks like. It's a young man opening the door for a girl on their first date. It's a father working long hours to provide for his family. It's a soldier risking his life to defend his country.
Okay, so the answer to toxic masculinity is men taking responsibility, right? And I'm fine with that. Look, I've talked about someone has to be responsible. The problem is if you're going to make men responsible for women, for families, for society, there has to be authority attached to that responsibility.
I'm sorry, what was that again? I'm a little deaf in this ear. What was that again? TFM, right? Where on earth did all this come from? How did this get developed? Oh, I thought this was one. I thought it was Andrew Tate. I thought it was Rollo Tomassi. No, actually, it was the first. I would say maybe somebody came before TFM, but the first understanding of this really came from TFM. I'm giving him his due. You want to say, oh, Rollo wants his props. No, I'm giving props here to TFM for this. I've been harping on this for a long time. If I can put it through the bullhorn, I will. But this is where it came from. And this is where I got it. This is where Tate got it from. And this is what we're looking at right now, because the same arguments, the same shit that's going on in that first Dennis Prager the video is exactly the same shit that we've been talking about since 2016.
This is where the traditionalists really just trip. This is where they just completely screw up. The problem is, in order to have a functional system, and we all agree, men are responsible for women, they are responsible for society, they are responsible for families. That's what a functional society looks like. But you can't then say men and women are equal, take men's authority away, give it to women, say that men and women are partners, but men continue to need to be responsible for women. That doesn't make any sense. You have to have responsibility and authority together, or it doesn't work. So all this talk about good men, better men, good masculinity. Okay, you want men to be responsible. Are you going to give them authority? If you want men to be responsible for women, if you want men to hold open doors, fight in wars, save babies from burning buildings, there has to be something attached to that. Men aren't just selfless, servile robots that just die at your whim because it feels good. If you want them to be responsible, you have to give them authority. You take their authority away, men are going to walk away because there's nothing in it for them. You've taken the carrot away. All you have is the stick. And eventually you keep hitting a dog with a stick, he's going to fucking snap at you.
The growing problem in today's society.
All right, so I have to pause it there just briefly. Don't worry, we'll get back to it. I know this is good shit, huh? All right, I have to respond to this first, okay? So I got this thrown at me a while back, and then so I made this point about tradfem pundits just want enough male empowerment. You guys have heard me say this. Want enough male empowerment to return men to an improved, but really an older state of usefulness to women, but not so empowered that men would aspire to true authority and become ungovernable by women. And then, of course, I got this. I don't even know who this person is. She says, what does true authority over women look like? You never answer this question. Well, guess what? I'm answering it right now. Actually, I'm just going to let TFM answer this stuff for you right now. Because when people say, whenever you say authority, women think, oh my God, he wants to slam me down. He wants authority. He wants to keep me in the kitchen. He wants to shackle me to the oven. He wants us to go back to 1950s male chauvinist pigs. That's the imagery that is concocted, that is called up in women's minds. So whenever you hear a term like submissiveness, like when Allie was talking about this, I submit to my husband. Whenever you talk about authority, well, what does authority over women look like? Well, here's the thing. You want to know why we get the sanitization of the red pill right now is because people want to say, well, we got to give guys some kind of authority, but we got to allow them to lead. We have to allow them to be leaders. Well, in the term allow, what that does, it presupposes that you already have the authority. And you're just giving a little bit of, you're not really in charge. We know who's really in charge, who really wears the pants in this family, right? But go ahead, let dad pretend that he's in charge. That's essentially the same vibe that's going on with the idea that, oh, we got to let him lead. We got to let him do some things. We got to let him be a man now and then, right? But not so much so that we could actually get hurt. Not so much so that we would trust dad with our lives or boyfriend or whatever. Not so much so that we actually give him real authority on the condition that he takes care of us. That's what Tate was talking about on Fresh and Fit. How dare you,
how dare you,
how dare you, want, all the modern conveniences of the 21st century and all of this comfort and have all of these, have the luxury of believing in gynocentrism, have the luxury of living the lifestyle that you live right now, but yet men have to be responsible, but they can never be any kind of authority in exercise. They can't be judgmental. They can't have any real power over their kids. They can't do anything. You can't exercise anything.
It isn't that men are too masculine. It's that they're not masculine enough. When men embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive, they are leaders, warriors, and heroes.
Okay, so I agree with this part, but where's the authority? So this is what's interesting. She admits that men who embrace their masculinity are leaders. Being a leader implies authority because you're leading people. People are following you. You have authority over the people that you're responsible for. So it's like, this is what I don't get about traditionalists. They know that men have to have authority. They know it. They know it. I know you agree with me. I know in your heart of hearts, you agree with me. The problem is you can't say it because of my elections, my female voters, and all this other crap. But you know it's true. You know men have to have authority over women, over families, and over society. Call it traditional family values, call it the nuclear family, call it whatever the hell you want. It's called patriarchy. Without patriarchy, traditionalism doesn't work. Without male authority, male responsibility doesn't work. You have to have both. And she's admitting this right here by calling men leaders.
Yeah, let me stop really quickly here because I want to add one thing to what he's saying here. Yes, 100%. And this also goes back to what I was just saying. That's why I prefaced this. To how do we organize societies hierarchically? How do we women organize societies in a communitarian way? Well, we can't have any real authority for men if we're going to do things in an egalitarian way. Although what that really is a power play. It's just like communism, right? Like we want to say everybody has their own vote. We're all communists. We're all going to be, yes, comrade, right? But we already know that there's still going to be that hierarchy from within that communist, that socialist, that communitarian structure. There's going to be people who are going, because that's the way human beings are. That's the way we're built. We're looking for we're status seek. We're clout chasers and hell raisers, right? We are status seeking. We want to get one up. We want to drive a nicer car. We want to have a better bitch. We want to have a better house. We want to live a better life. That's just human nature. End of story. But when we pretend that, and I'm laying this squarely at the feet of traditional conservatives right now, when we pretend that we can still have this egalitarian, women should be able to do this and that. Like when we deny patriarchy, the best thing he ever said here, and again, this is 2016, the best thing he said here is that structure doesn't work without patriarchy. You don't give authority to men without patriarchy. Because why? Because patriarchy is a hierarchical structure. There is more freedom and there is a better control and there is a better way of life in patriarchy because it is hierarchical and it's based on, well, ideally, it's based on empirical status and you did a better job. So you get, it's not the trophy, participation trophy generation. That's what we keep talking about. The only reason we have that as a term, by the way, is because we're so conditioned to understanding society in egalitarian terms. Everybody's a winner, not in patriarchy. Not in a hierarchical naturalist way of thinking about organizing society. But patriarchy is actually a more balanced system than gynocentric social order. Is a more balanced system. and he's about to tell you, but I'll let TFM say this. But you're looking here at the difference between an egalitarian, communitarian way of organizing society versus a hierarchical way of organizing society. And that's the conflict, because when you look at Prager and you look at these guys who want a half measure, they want to dip their toes in the red pill to sort of, well, I mean, they want to build a brand on it, of course. But in doing so, they have to acknowledge exactly what TFM was talking about in 2016. You don't get male authority without a patriarchy. Because we can't all be leaders. We can't all be, you know, we're all just going to be on the same team. Whenever I talk again about communitarianism, and I said this 2 weeks ago when Destiny came at me after this shit, I said this. I said, look, women organize societies egalitarian, in an egalitarian fashion, in a communitarian fashion, because that's the way human females evolved over the course of millennia. And men organize societies based on patriarchy, because there's a certain degree of authority as you kind of go up that chain of command. So there's the guy, the president at the top, he has all the authority. Then there's a lieutenant, and then there's the admiral and the lieutenant, and all down the chain of the military command, all the way down to the private, who doesn't have all that much authority. He does what he's told. Right now, women have all the authority, and every guy is a private. At least that's what we think should be the ideal situation, because we're still trying to make egalitarianism the order of the day. That's why.
I agree. Men who take responsibility are leaders. But imagine trying to be a leader without authority. The hell does that even look like?
Right.
It's like if you take authority away from parents, they can't raise their kids. Why? Because you require authority to be a leader, to be a parent. When you're put into a position of responsibility, you need authority over that which you are responsible for. It is that simple and fundamental. You simply cannot separate authority from responsibility.
When they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities, leaving destruction and despair in their wake.
Men aren't the ones who stripped their authority away. Feminism did. And who's going to restore it? Nobody's talking. Like, I'm the only one on this hill talking about taking women's rights away and restoring male authority.
I'm about to say,
no one is talking about this. That is the problem. The only answer from the right is that men need to take responsibility. And when men say, well, why should I take responsibility if I don't have authority? They just say, stop being toxic. Stop being a misogynist. Just, you have to take responsibility. It's what men do. Fuck you. Very simple thought experiment. If you own a business, you are the sole proprietor of that business. You will work 60, 80, 100-hour weeks in order to make sure that business succeeds, because it's your business. Now, if you were simply an employee of that business and your boss asked you to work a 60, 80, 100-hour week for no additional pay because you really needed the help, you tell him to go fuck himself. And why? Because it's not your business. You don't own it. You don't have the authority over the business. You don't own the profits of the business. He does. So he can do the long hours. It's his business. So you took authority away from men in the name of gender equality. Now women are on all kinds of antidepressants. The fertility rate is dog shit. The West is being flooded with immigrants from Africa and the Middle East, and they're raping kids and running people over with trucks apiece. What are you going to do about it? Well, come on, man. Can you work these 60, 80, 100-hour weeks? Oh, we could really use the help over here. Well, are you going to give me authority over this business that you want me to help out? Well, no, we're not going to give you authority. That wouldn't be fair. But can you just contribute vastly more?
That's gonna get me out. Okay, let me push it up. Hold on a second. I gotta get past. That was a pretty good take, though. I don't want to put too much in there because I know that I'll get demonetized for putting that copyrighted thing in there. Anyways, let me back up off of this. So essentially, again, he's making the comparison here. Is you can't ask your like I was saying before. It's like asking the privates to do the job of the entire military structure, right? If you're an employee of the company rather than the owner of the company, that's the comparison in this. The other thing I wanted to point out, you've probably heard me say this before as well, is like today you say, well, how come Rollo's against marriage? I'm not against marriage. I'm against marriage the way we do it right now. Okay. But you'll notice that the first thing, by the way, the first thing out of Dennis Prager's mouth was, well, Tate doesn't really talk about marriage all that much, and Hebert should really be, focusing on a good, godly, nuclear family marriage and stuff. He's still harping on that. But again, this is 2016 with TFM and talking about Ellie Beth Stuckey and PragerU in 2016, and now we're having the same conversation in 2022, and it's the same question that they have not been able to answer since 2016. Or let's say they're either unwilling or unable to answer since 2016. And it comes down to, again, like without that authority, you cannot affect that responsibility. So when you see like a guy like Andrew Tate, who he wants to clout chase that, he wants some of that juice, right? Well, that's fine. But all it is it's a vehicle for him to go and promote his ideology, to go and promote his philosophy. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. You guys can make that decision, that call. But what I'm seeing right here is an inability to acknowledge, first off, the things that have been coming out, but also, go back in time and you can see what the conversation was like, even as far back as 2016.
If you want men to take charge, if you want men to be leaders, if you want men to be responsible, give up your fucking rights. Submit to the patriarchy. It's that simple. If you're not willing to submit, then fuck you. I'm not going to take care of your dumb ass. You want to be equal? Go be equal. Go take care of your own shit. Oh, you can't? Oh, you need men to take care of you? Well, then submit. Bow down. No? Then fuck you. You see how this works? Are you going to be part of the solution? You're going to be part of the problem. If all you have is shame and bullshit, go fuck yourself.
The consequences can be seen everywhere.
And that's still all they have to this day. Shame and bullshit. Responsibility is going to, it's like the call word for every trad from Matt Walsh all the way to anybody else. Okay. Still hearing it from this, maybe it's from different mouths, but it's the same script. Oh, if men would just man up, women would be better if men would make them better. If men all got together and said, you know what, we're not going to put up with this slutting around. Hell, we don't want this hoeing around anymore. It must be because guys can't get their shit together and they can't keep their dicks in their pants. It's the easiest dismissal of the problem, of the disease rather than the symptom. Like it's the easiest dismissal of that because it's been there forever. You're thinking with the little head. If men would just start thinking with the big head and not thinking with the little head, and then they took responsibility. No, because all that does is push you back into a position of being a slave. Because responsibility without authority is slavery.
Where 1 in 4 fathers now lives apart from his children. And children who grow up without a dad are generally more depressed than their peers who have a mother and a father. They are at far greater risk for incarceration, teen pregnancy, and poverty. 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless.
That's not the fault of men rejecting their responsibilities. That's 100% the fault of feminism.
Okay. Before he continues, I want you guys to notice one thing. Did you catch any of the things? This is Allie Beth Stuckey who's doing the reading here. Fatherlessness. It's never single mothers. It's never, it's all, whenever you see that there's like, it's just because, first of all, let's just call a spade right here. When we think of single parents, we think of a single mother and a child and that boy, right? I mean, we've made men effectively, superfluous in Western societies right now. But notice the language. 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless. They don't say 71% of high school dropouts are from a single mother home. They say fatherless. And again, when people throw this one at me all the time, I get this all the time, and everybody drink. I know I say that all the time, but every time I hear this, I'm thinking, why are they not like pointing out the fact that women in like 89% of custody cases get primary custody? Women are the ones, I don't know where you guys are getting this statistic from, but I know that at least 70% and possibly 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And then, of course, that sparks the conversation of, well, if men were better, then they wouldn't have to divorce them all the time. That's again, that's a conversation stopper. I really need to get some like good data on that and say, no, they do that primarily because they're financially incentivized to do that. And later on, when Destiny and MJ Get Good are going at it, there's all kinds of data that puts that off. But of course, Destiny wants to harp on that and talk about, oh, well, it's men do better than women in divorce situations. No, they don't. And there's a mountain of data that proves that. However, it just depends on how you're defining the terms of what's a success, what's not, how are you doing better, how you're not doing better. Okay. So when a woman is a single mother, yeah, she has a real tough time finding another guy. Why? Because we make marriage the benchmark for the success of that person. So when we talk about fatherlessness, and this is with women and with men, we want to lift up single mothers, but we call guys who are not in the house or not married to the mother of their baby mama, who aren't married to the mother of their children, we call that fatherlessness. Language is important. You have to see this. So when we talk about fatherlessness or a fatherless home or whatever, okay, if the benchmark is, if the metric by which we're going to measure fatherlessness is mom and dad married, then we have that's one conversation. If we measure fatherlessness or by the involvement of that father in the child's life, and we, irrespective of marital status, that's another fucking conversation. That's why language matters. I wanted to point that out because I see this all the time. Whenever you see statistics like this, a single family household, well, we're probably thinking in terms of like, men, but here's fatherlessness. And whenever you see the father as the primary in like a bad statistic, well, fatherlessness, this, or involved fathers versus uninvolved fathers. Can we like have that conversation? Because if we're going to talk about how the youth of today are all corrupt, they're all out in the streets and they're rioting and they're pulling down statues and they're spray painting the sides of walls, crime and suicide and drug abuse and all this, like all the stats that she says, it's all on guys. It's all on the dude. It's all, if a man was there, then all of this stuff would cease. Yeah, well, TFM back in 2016 is going to point out the fact that, yeah, it's because men have been removed from the family because they have no authority, because we want this fantasy of an egalitarian partnership in a marriage and in mom and dad. But men don't. You want to know why men and women are like, don't want to get together, and we're pushing back the first age of marriage further and further, and fertility rates are dropping off a cliff, and why people threw that one at me just recently. Or you want to talk about why women after a certain age aren't going to, like statistically, are probably not going to get married. You want to talk about those statistics? Let's rewind it all the way back to the fact that we're calling fatherlessness one thing, and it's the conversation that we're having. But we don't want to, we don't want to talk about the disease. We want to talk about the symptoms, and that's all these guys want to do when they're trying to get on the red pill train.
Who created the family courts? Who created the Duluth model? Irresponsible men rejecting their manly responsibilities? No, fuck that shit. Women did this. Feminism did this. Shaming men into taking responsibility when nothing is being done about the actual cause is absolute bullshit. Look, there's a disease. There's a disease called female empowerment. It is killing the West. It isn't just killing America and in the UK. It's killing Western civilization as a whole. Female empowerment is fucking cancer. Putting the burden of responsibility onto men is complete bullshit. Because once women were given voting rights, they became the majority of voters. Women outlive men. Women don't go to war and die. They work cushy jobs and they don't die on the work site. There's always going to be more women than men in any sort of healthy society. Throw in wars and so forth, then you have vastly more women than men. I can't think of a natural situation where men would outnumber women except the one-child policy in China, where parents deliberately drowned their daughters because they could only have one child, so they wanted a son that would take care of them in old age. Aside from those artificial constraints, there's going to be more women than men in almost any society. Now, once you appreciate that fact, you appreciate the fact that we have universal suffrage in a democratic society, women run the government. So how are men supposed to fix anything? The men's rights activists have been trying to fix the laws for 100 years. They haven't gotten shit changed. The laws have only gotten worse. They're getting worse by the year. Every year. Feminists demand more laws that empower women at men's expense. And what does the right do? What is the right doing to stop this? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. You're just blaming.
All right. Now, what has just happened over the course of the last year that would indicate that, with this resource trial, the laws, right? How about forgiving student debt to the tune of, I agree, it's like a half, not even a half measure, to the tune of $10,000, right? That's disproportionately benefits women because women hold at least 2/3 of the student debt right now. And then, by the way, as I said, numbers count. Okay. When people tell me, well, 60% of women are enrolling and 40% of men are enrolling, that's enrollment. How many of those men and women are actually graduating that are using 4 years of that money to begin with? Men have a much higher dropout rate when it comes to college than women do. So when you look at the graduation rates, that's what we ought to be at least putting those two data points together. But what's happened? Well, now we're going to affect the economy as a result of laws that are going to benefit women. So he hit on one other point that I got with Jedediah on my first interview is like when we talk about selective services. There's no way to argue that. If you're a feminist, that's a dead end. You'll say, well, who hurt you for bringing this up? That'll be the dead end, right? But that's a conversation stopper, and it always will be, because responsibility without authority. Men do not have the authority to opt out of selective services. And women, just by virtue of a vagina, you don't have to worry about that. You get privileges and rights and services as a result of having tits and a vagina. End of story. You do not win that argument.
Blaming men, telling them they need to take responsibility. You're not doing anything to actually solve the real problem, which is female empowerment. You can't fix this problem by convincing men to just suck it up and walk proudly into the slaughterhouse. Men are waking up. This is complete bullshit. So either fix the problem or Allahu Akbar, prepare for the collapse. You're going to lose your rights either way. Either Western men are going to take your rights away or Muhammad will. One of them's going to do it.
Of all the rocks upon which we build our lives, family is the most important. And we are called to recognize and honor how critical every father is to that foundation. That was said by then Senator Barack Obama in 2008. If we are honest with ourselves, he went on, we'll admit that too many fathers are missing from too many lives and too many homes. As much as we try to deny the need for real masculine strength in society, there's no denying its necessity. Healthy families and strong communities depend on the leadership and bravery of good men.
Again, leadership. Okay, you want men to be leaders. Great. If you want them to be leaders, you have to follow them. You have to give them authority. You have to submit to them. This is not rocket science.
Yet, the current trend is to feminize young men in the hopes of achieving some utopian notion of equality and peace. And it starts at the earliest ages. In the school classroom, boys are invariably the problem. On the playground, aggressive games like dodgeball have long been banished. We tell young men that their intrinsic desire to compete is wrong. Everybody gets a trophy. Don't run up the score. This anti-male tilt continues on through higher education and into the workplace. It has created millions of tentative men, unhappy women, and confused boys and girls. Here's a secret that every woman knows. Women want real men. Men they can count on and, yes, look up to.
Click.
Women want real men they can count on and look up to. So you want men to take care of you. Again, if women want men to be responsible for them, men have to have authority over women. If you want men to be responsible for families, then fathers need to have authority over their families. This isn't rocket science. I know I'm beating this dead horse, but she's saying right here, women want real men that they can count on and look up to. You don't look up to someone you're equal to. If you need a man to look up.
You guys hear that? Women, he said it a little differently. Women cannot look up to a man who is their equal. That's why egalitarian partnerships. That's why, we have an equal partnership in my marriage. That's why you don't have a marriage. because you cannot look up to a man who is your equal. You guys have heard me say this before when it comes to like I think it was it Patrice O'Neill? Oh, wait, where is it? Patrice O'Neill. Oh, I invoked the name of Patrice, of Saint Patrice. Okay. When he says, oh, women want a guy who's taller than them, makes more money than them, has six-pack abs, six-figure income, drives a nice car, 6 foot tall, blah, 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 on down the thing. All of the prerequisites that every girl on freaking Fresh and Fit will go and say. You want to know why the female delusion calculator exists? Because of that. Because women aren't looking for an equal. They're looking for somebody who is above them, that they can look up to, that has integrity, that's respectable. Well, the only way a man is respectable is if he has authority over his own fucking life. You will not get that in an egalitarian partnership. And of course, what Patrice O'Neill, I'll finish that. We'll talk about. He want a guy who is better than you, taller than you, more paid than you, is basically a higher value than you on a sociosexual, socioeconomic scale, but you want that guy to believe he's your equal. No, women cannot look up to a man who is her equal. End of story. You want to know why divorce rates spike when a woman gets a promotion or she gets a higher status and she moves up in her job? Like they're making the same amount of money when they're married and she makes more later on, or she's got a higher status position at the company she's in. You want to know why that triggers divorce? Because women cannot look up to a man who is her equal, and certainly not if he's below her. That's why it's fundamentally innate, evolved firmware in women. End of story. There's tons of research that prove this, empirical data that proves this. Okay, I'll dig it up for you here later on when we get onto the next part here. But I want you guys, I had to put a full stop in here because that's where this comes down to. When men don't have that authority, when men are always supposed to, you have the responsibility. So it's this endless tail chasing, trying to still keep the bitch happy, but also don't let her think that she's above you. You want to have an equal partnership, and we want to make these decisions together, and blah, blah, blah. There's no captain of the ship. We're both equal co-partners. So we're both going to, we'll be the captains whenever it suits us, whoever's position is the better one. No, women can't look up to a man she can't respect, and can't look up to a man who is her equal, period.
Then you're admitting that you're beneath him. And if you're going to look up to him and you're going to count on him and he's going to be responsible for you, you goddamn better submit to him and give him authority over you. And
right there, by the way, that's what women fear. They fear that because, first of all, no man is trustworthy. No, never trust your man with anything. Never trust him with your life or your kids or anything else. So you have to keep a side hustle. That's what happened with, you want to know why Allie and Pearl's TikTok video went crazy for her saying that she submits to her husband, or that she's deferential to him at the very least? The number one answer was, oh, what if he leaves you? What if he fucks his secretary? What if he doesn't keep up his end of the bargain? What if he, then you're going to be out in the cold and, I don't know, Dust Bowl era 1930s depression, situation with you and your babies starving in the cold night somewhere in winter. Like it's the slippery slope, of course, but the idea is the same. It's like you can't trust men for your security ever whatsoever. And you know when that started, by the way? Right around the time that we came up with the hormonal birth control, and right around the time when we had this sexual revolution that Dennis Prager seems to really enjoy. Right? Right about then, that's when that attitude started to shift. Well, I'm going to divorce my husband. I've already shown you the stats. Hormonal birth control and divorce stats are almost like right up next to each other in the correlation of that spike. Hormonal birth control use spikes, divorces spike. What happens as a result of those divorces? Women have to get into the workforce so that they can provide for their own long-term security, because you can't trust a man. Oh, I don't have to be married to this loser anymore because now I got hormonal birth control. Oh, okay, fine. If you got some other explanation for the divorce rate spiking alongside the increase in the use of hormonal birth control, I am all fucking ears. If you have some other theory or some other hypothesis, please tell me. But that is one hell of a correlation right there. So that had to have some. So what's the downstream effect of all that? Why would that precipitate? If it does, why would hormonal birth control that is only female controlled, why would that precipitate a divorce rate spike like that? I'm Bueller, hello?
What does that look like? You got to take away the family courts. You got to take away all this bullshit laws. Take women's right to vote away. All this fucking shit has to go.
No amount of feminist theory will change that. I don't know any woman at any age who is attracted to a passive man who looks to her to be his provider, protector, and leader. Every woman I know wants a strong, responsible man.
Every woman of every age wants a man to lead her. They want a man to be responsible for her. Great. Give up your rights. Starting with your right to vote. Give them up. All of it.
Good luck.
We're rolling it all back. It's all got to go. It's fucking Toys R Us up at this bitch. Everything must go. Give up all your rights, submit to the patriarchy, and then men will lead you. Oh, what's that? Oh, you want to keep your rights? Well, then fuck you. It's that simple.
That's not a consequence of a social construct or cultural pressure. It's innate. The devaluation of masculinity won't end well because feminine passive men don't stop evil. Passive men don't defend, protect, or provide. Passive men don't lead.
You hear that? Protect, defend, or provide. Protect, parental invest. That sounds like the 3 Ps, right? Protect, provide, parental investment. The beta bucks side of hypergamy. Imagine that. Wow, we really need that in our lives. Well, if we can't get it from men, I guess we'll have to go and join the workforce and enter into enter into this.
Women. Now, with the advent of Instagram, the advent of online dating apps, women get more opportunities now than ever before. So what happens is that a majority of men now aren't even considered as suitable candidates.
What's happened is women have stepped into more and more traditionally masculine roles. They're earning more money. They're handling they're stable. There's more to them than just looking pretty. But men are not allowed to step in traditionally feminine roles. Now they've taken the masculine role of like, hold on, I got a career. I'm working. I'm smart. I get to handle my. Okay, cool. Well, can I just like be somebody that like take care of the household? Like, let me like cook and clean shit. No, you're a fucking loser. Wait, hold on. But that's what you did 40 years ago. But now that women have stepped into the masculine role, they're looking at all these men and, studies show this. Women are earning more and more and more and more, but they still won't date down socioeconomically. They still won't date a poor guy. And it's like, well, hold on.
Yes. And guess what, Destiny? That's not because of choice. That's not because of a social engineering. That's because that's the way the machine is fucking built. That's the way we are. That's the human animal, my friend. Women cannot look up to a man who is her equal, period. End of story. You want to know why you're in a freaking open relationship or whatever the fuck you're calling it, a throuple or a poly thing? That's why. Because the chick that's with you cannot look up to you. Even if you think you are equal, she cannot look up to you, and will find that outside the marriage or outside whatever the hell you're even calling it. That's why. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to most men can't really aren't mature or intelligent enough or whatever. Most women or most people can't really do what we're doing. You know where I've heard that before, by the way? I've heard that from Dr. Jeffrey Miller and Diana Fleischman, evangelists for the open marriage, the poly lifestyle, polyamory, whatever the fuck we're calling it. You know why that doesn't? Here's why I have a problem with poly. And I have an episode called The Problem with Poly. The reason why I have a problem with poly has nothing to do with moralism, has nothing to do with philosophy or religion or any of that stuff, which I mean, you can attach that all you want to. You know why I have a problem with poly? It's because it goes against fundamental human nature. That's why, period. Oh, well, how can you say that? What about the patriarchs of old? Yeah, well, those were patriarchs. That was patriarchy at that. That wasn't poly. That was women, multiple women deferring to that one guy. That's what that was. Poly is something different now. Okay, the way that we look at polyamory right now is all based on an egalitarian model. You want to know why women will share an alpha and they don't have anything to do with beta men? The reason why they'll go out there is because they want to find that guy who is that innate natural leader. That's why. The reason I have a problem with poly is that you cannot take out of the human firmware. You can condition it out, but there's a reason why envy, jealousy, mate guarding, all exist in every one of our heads. And not just us. I mean, higher form animals too do mate guarding. Most primates do it. I'm pretty sure most lions do it, right? Name the animal in the animal kingdom. There's probably by order of degree, there's a measure of mate guarding, because men are primarily interested in their own paternity, because if they fail in that, their DNA does not go on into the next generation. And women are incentivized to get alpha fucks and beta bucks. And if they can't find it in the same guy, they will cuckold one and they will fuck the other one. And I'm not saying that that's always going to, it would be great if we could just, come together and make sure everybody's on the same page. Sure. Awesome. But we still have to work within the operative framework of the human machine and the operative framework of our firmware. So when we start talking about poly this or whatever, all I can think of is, well, then why would we want to thwart our innate natural firmware when it comes to mate guarding? Or why would we want to, like, oh, I believe we're promiscuous and monogamy is unnatural? Again, we're innately promiscuous, but without monogamy, without parental investment in the next generation, that they die off. Because big head babies, we can go back to that essay again if you want. Big head babies is basically, we have to invest in our offspring. Women are K-selected. Men tend to be R-selected, depending on like their status, right? Are they alpha? Are they beta? Whatever. Left to our own devices, men are interested in unlimited sexuality with unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. But most men can't realize that outside of porn, virtually outside of porn. That's why porn is popular, because it offers unlimited access to unlimited sexuality in a virtual sense. That's why it's free. So when I see people when I see Dr. Jeffrey Miller, who knows this shit, when I see probably, I don't know for sure, I'll give Destiny his due here. He probably knows this shit too. There's a reason why men experience jealousy different than women do, because there's different opportunity costs that are lost between both those sexes, because we're both different. We're not equals. We're not, and by the way, one's not necessarily superior over the other. Again, it comes back down to like, what's the challenge? What are we talking about? Who's going to achieve what? Some things women are better at. A lot of other things men are better at as well. Doesn't mean one's superior over the other. It just depends on what the task is that one sex has to do that the other cannot do. That's all it comes down to. It's not supremacism. It's not misogyny. It's not chauvinism. It's not, I don't know, patriarchy, whatever. No, it's just an understanding and a sober acknowledgement of what we are and how human nature works and how the human machine works. And the more we try to thwart it and the more we try to monkey around with shit with like mate guarding or jealousy, or the more trouble you're going to get yourself into. It's as simple as that. And it all comes down to your programming. I believe in egalitarian equality between the sexes. Oh, I can't believe that women or that men can't be just as good of fathers, or we don't earn the respect because we want to stay at home with our kids and serve a conventionally feminine role. Yeah, you're not going to get any respect for that because women don't respect you and men don't respect you. I wonder why that is. Is it because of our social understanding, our social learning, our social constructionism? No, it's the innate firmware that we've had since the time we were on the sub-Saharan African plains, savannas in Africa, right? It worked for your tribal, your hunter-gatherer ancestors, and you're still dealing with it today. It's a vestige, right? Well, maybe we shouldn't have that. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. Who's to say? But it seems to me that the success of our species, certainly that had some element and some contributed something to the success of us. So, if you want to say, well, and this is not Destiny, but I've read this conversation before when Dr. Jeffrey Miller was talking about, poly is only for very elite, erudite, intellectuals such as myself and Diana, because we understand the jealousy response and we're able to eroticize it. You want to know why cuckold porn is such a big niche? And go look at the stats on Pornhub. That's Pornhub stats, not on actual Pornhub. The reason why it's such a big niche right now is because it is eroticizing a jealousy response that is conditioning men and women, by the way, to get off on women cuckolding other guys, cuckolding lesser men. That's why they get off, because the only way you can get around that firmware is by conditioning something, by getting a reward, getting an intrinsic reward. And if you can eroticize that, basically warning sign, hey, your bitch is having sex with somebody else and you're going to lose your investment in this woman. That's what the jealousy response is for. That's what mate guarding is for. If you ignore that and you get off on that, then you're essentially contributing to your own extinction. From a genetic evolutionary DNA perspective, you are contributing to your own extinction because your belief set is such that you don't care about your DNA. You don't care about your kids. You don't care about that. It all comes down to incentives. It all comes down to, are you going to condition yourself out of your innate understanding of like jealousy? Like, why is it that guys get jealous of women who, when they fuck some other guy, the first thing out of their mouth is, where did you do it? Was it in the kitchen? Does he have a bigger dick? Did you like it? Did you get off? You know, all these very like visceral physical details. And men are most men are far more likely to dump that bitch. Where's it?
Dump that bitch.
To dump that bitch than women would when a guy goes out and he cheats. That's the difference. And people always say like, well, you know, if a man can cheat or if a man can go out and fuck a bunch of hoes, then I should be able to. No, because you're not built that way. And your firmware is not that way. Women put way more emotional investment into the sex act than men do. That's why men get, if you want to know why pornography is the most popular amongst men, it's because men can separate, if they have it at all, can separate an emotional investment in sex, whereas women cannot, because women have a higher reproduction cost. Simple as that. Very, very simple.